fades along. What's going on? What?
It's on.
What's up, everybody? What's happening?
Good morning.
It's Wednesday. What's that mean?
It is our Boss Up and List.
Boss Up and List.
Virtual listing party.
All day virtual listing party.
Where we state our goals in the Boss Facebook group, and we talk about
where we state our goals in the Boss Facebook group.
I don't even know what my sentence was there anymore.
We state our goals.
And we try to hold each other accountable and try to check in, and it's kind of like checking in with our coworkers to see how much we can get done on a specific day. Not to say that you don't work every other day, but maybe on Wednesday you'll put some very specific goals up there and you can kind of check in and see how you're doing.
Yeah, so if you're not in the Boss Facebook group, you should be, because we do this every Wednesday. And then every other day of the week we have listing goals. We do our hashtag 2 or 2 posts to get people to stay accountable and stuff. And then of course on Wednesdays we have this show, which is our kind of business focused show. We were supposed to have Data Mine. We were supposed to have Brooks from Data Mine on today, but he needed to reschedule and push it back to next week. So next Wednesday we're going to be doing Data Mine. So today we're going to be covering a topic that was suggested by you guys, talking about building a good listing. I'm not going to say building the perfect listing, because the reality is it's not an exact science. There's a lot of things that eBay kind of is a little bit ambiguous about when it comes to the search, and how the different things that we do with our listings affect the search. Because if they gave an exact formula,
we'd all be beating the system.
Pretty much. So anyway, so we don't necessarily have all the answers, and you're going to find out that we actually do things somewhat differently in certain aspects of listing. So I don't know, we could break out in a full-on brawl right on camera.
My way's way better.
We might break up by the end of this show. You never know.
It's possible.
It's very possible. But another thing I wanted to say is, we do these shows, we have our group and everything, and we pretty regularly get contacted by people who want to know if we do like one-on-one mentoring. If they could pay us to show them how to become a seller, especially people starting out. And I just want to say, listen, guys, I get it. Maybe you're just starting out and you want to know how to do stuff and you want to do it right. And so you're looking for a way to get kind of that one-on-one treatment. But listen, you don't need it. You got this. We're doing it for free, guys. We're doing it for free. And you're starting a business. So it's all about being accountable to yourself. And you can use stuff like our Boss Facebook group, to be held accountable.
We're happy to help people, and our group in general is very helpful. I think we have some great members with various degrees of expertise that are happy to share what they know and what works for them. And basically eBay is one of those things where you just kind of you take a little bit from here, or take a little bit from there, a little bit from there, and you figure out the format and the formula that works for you, for what you're selling, for how you want to grow your business. You can't compare yourself every day to other people. I can look at these big YouTubers that make great money on YouTube and have millions of followers and all this kind of stuff, and be a little bit jealous of that. Or I can be like, hey, we've got 6,000 people that kind of think we're cool. That's pretty cool. So
I think you're cool.
I think you're cool.
Except when it comes to how you list, whatever.
Yeah, the Misfits hat has been retired for a couple of days. I think this is my Valentine's Day gift, that she's wearing a different hat this week.
Let it be known, though, in the past she has bitched about this hat as well. So let's just say,
well, because she tends to fixate on a certain hat and then will wear it for like months at a time. This is the Elmer Fudd hat.
Yeah, Angie, we just got a little ring light. I don't know if you guys can tell us if it's better, if there's an improvement in the lighting. There's different settings we can have.
Of course, you're going to see it reflected. There's nothing we can do about that. But we do have a better camera and a better ring light, hoping that we can
improve the looks.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to paying for being taught. Listen, if you watch our show regularly, first of all, if you decided that we're sellers that you want to follow and that you trust us, if you just watch our shows, we get really deep into the details of how to do things, particularly when it comes to this Wednesday show. I think we're pretty good at paying attention to the chat and answering questions. Also, we have the Boss Facebook group. Also, we have Friday when you can ask any questions. And then Sundays when we talk about like what we bought, what we sold. There's all kinds of ways that you can learn. Like you don't, especially when you're starting out, you don't need to be shelling out all this money to learn things. And you know what? If you're desperate to like get rid of your money, fine. throw us some super chats. We're okay with that. We're down with that if you think we're helping you out. But otherwise, like, don't worry about it. You can learn this stuff without spending a bunch of money. In fact, BB's Deals just decided, BB's Deals, I want to know what is going on, because you do a super chat. You did $1.99 super chat, and then you put in $20. Is that like your vision board? Like you're
gonna turn that $1.99.
You're like, I'm gonna turn this $1.99 into 20. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure I understand, but we still appreciate your $1.99 super chat. We think you're awesome. But anyway, guys, so Real Stitch, Frenchie says the lighting is awesome. Cheryl, I am glowing. By the way, Cheryl, I want to give a shout out to Cheryl because her husband just got home from spinal surgery.
Yeah, so she's home being nurse right now.
Yeah, so we want to give some happy healing thoughts to her husband, and also
who sometimes watches our show and laughs at us.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well,
he laughs with us. Okay, he's not laughing. I mean, maybe he's laughing at you, but
well, it's true.
But anyway, so hopefully he's healing up fine. But I also want to say to Cheryl, I think Vicki knows what it's all about, taking care of your significant other and how stressful that can be. So good for you.
I hope he is not nearly as whiny as Katie was.
I was not whiny.
No, she wasn't too bad.
You take that back.
She wasn't too bad.
Red Nuggets Resale says today may not be Friday, but I have my pants off. Okay, so today we're going to talk about building a listing. We're mainly focusing on eBay because that's where that's where most of our experience is. We will touch on eBay or Etsy a little bit, but we're going to go kind of step by step through this. And we're just throwing this topic together from a suggestion from last night. So this isn't like a super long planned out thing. We're going to kind of go with the flow.
Not a lot of research has gone into this, although we do every day. Kind of wing stuff every show anyway. I think that if you try to put together a super long format for a specific show, it can kind of get tedious. So we try to just wing it. One thing that we do need to talk about is that on Wednesday is our one show, our Boss Up and List show, that does have a sponsor. We have a sponsor. And our sponsor is Sizely.
Yeah.
Size.ly. They are a listing tool for sellers on any platform, and it helps you when you sell clothing, basically clothing and some shoes and things like that.
It's a visual representation of their measurements of your clothing, and I think it's a really good way to make your listings look super professional. And it's a good way to show exactly where you measured stuff. I know some people will do like the picture with the measuring tape. I'm not a huge fan of that personally. Sometimes it's hard to see.
I think it looks really unprofessional.
And it looks kind of unprofessional. I get the idea behind it, but this is like a visual representation of where you measured.
Or the people that put like a Coke can or something for size reference in a listing. I don't really like that.
I like to use a banana. But basically, it's just a way to hopefully cut down on returns, make it really clear what your measurements are. It is nuts. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had like a jacket or a t-shirt or something that's missing the tag, or maybe it's so faded you can't see the size on it. So like what I'll do is I'll go on eBay and look for maybe other shirts or other jackets that are similar and look at their sizes and see what the measurements were to and then I'll say like, oh, it doesn't have a size tag, but it measures like an XL.
I do that too.
Okay, so I'll do that. It is crazy. Sometimes I'll have to go through 5 or 6 listings to find one that actually has measurements. And I'm like, what is wrong with people? Like measurements or sizes are not universal. Sorry, they just aren't. So hopefully if you guys are doing clothing, you're using Sizely to be able to kind of represent like what it is, what your measurements are. So yeah.
I just found that I used to always type out my measurements, and it took me a while to jump on the Sizely train. Katie's been using it for a long time. And I will say that once I started using Sizely, I very rarely don't use it at this point. It's so much easier than typing out all of my measurements, which is what I used to do. So
Liz, I wasn't going to show actually how I use Sizely, but I will show some of my listings that have the measurement picture in them, just so you can see like how I do it. So for sure. Frenchie says Sizely is the bomb and affordable. Totally. Like the pro level, which is pretty much the highest level you can get other than like the custom one. If you had like your own website, it's only like $8 a month. So it's really, really cheap for something that you use on every single listing. Yeah, Lorna, blows my mind the amount of people that don't measure. Seriously, that's part of what we're going to be talking today is like when you're building your listing, the idea is to have the best, most complete listing possible, because that's how you compete with the other listings on the page. That's how you get yourself pushed up in the search. There's a whole list of things that we don't necessarily know every single thing that affects the search results, but we do know a lot of them. And if you have like this list and you kind of check it off as you go, you're basically doing everything possible to push your listing as high up in the search as you can.
You know, and jewelry listings, Karen makes a good point there. A lot of jewelry listings don't have sizes either. That's the one time where I think that showing something for scale or using a measuring tape or a ruler actually makes sense, because it's really hard to gauge sizing on jewelry. Maybe not in your first photo, obviously, but in your description photo, that makes sense. Using something for, you know, certain cases, it's going to make sense.
Well, yeah, like I think the one thing I have a tape measure in is my little tiny mini adorable little Adidas shoes.
Right.
So I have a tape measure in front of the box, but it's a really clear, like, big picture of the tape measure. It's just hard when you have like a picture of an entire piece of clothing and you have this tape measure. Actually, I think we'll see some when we look at some stuff here in a second.
Yeah. And Brenda, I still get questions all the time on measurements as well, even though I use Sizely and have measurements. But I think that is due to a lot of people do not know how to click on description. If they're on mobile, if they're looking at a listing on mobile, you do not see a description on your listing unless you have to click an extra button to see a description.
But part of
that's unfortunate, but a lot of people just don't understand how to use
and I'll actually be showing some things that I do that hopefully will help some of you guys in how you kind of do when you're filling out your listing, the effect it can have on your mobile listings and what it looks like. And I'll show you. I'm just looking at this real quick right now. Okay. So anyway, so we're going to go ahead. This show is going to have a lot of screen sharing. So I'm sorry if
you're not going to see our
come to watch
faces.
the show so that you can gaze deeply into my eyes. But we are going to do a lot of screen sharing because it's all about, you know, being able to look at it as we're showing you. So let's go ahead and just share my screen now. Okay. So different people do this differently, and this is different people do it differently. Did you hear that?
Wow, that's impressive.
And right from the start, Vicki and I actually have different approaches to how we generally start a new listing. I do mostly sell similar for my own listings, or I do sell similar from other people's listings, whereas Vicki tends to start completely fresh. What? Big Thrift just put up her vision board, $299, $1 million. You have to believe it to see it. What? I like to think that's actually a 2.99 million, but I guess you're just thinking small, Allison. All right, so there's a couple of different ways that you can do it, but first I wanted to get into figuring out what category your item's going to go into. And it seems like it's pretty simple, like, oh, it's a t-shirt. It's going to be, how hard is it to figure out what category a t-shirt goes into? Well, you'd be surprised because there's some things that maybe you aren't aware of. And one of those things is how the eBay search works. So I actually did a couple of tests here. I just searched vintage Harley Davidson t-shirt. Now you'll notice that it automatically filters it to this t-shirts category. Now this doesn't always happen, and I'll show you some other examples, but let's say somebody's looking for a vintage Harley Davidson t-shirt. It's not going to be under vintage t-shirts. It automatically is going to filter it to men's t-shirts. Now I'm being very specific there because I know some people think like, oh, t-shirts, I'm going to reach more people if I put it in a unisex category. No. T-shirts are generally always going to be in men's t-shirts. Now, that doesn't mean all of them are going to be there, because look at this. It says
some are women's.
4,000.
If they're specifically women's, obviously put it in women's. But
yes. But 4,486 results. Now, if you back it out and you click on all, there't almost 10,000 results when you put in vintage Harley Davidson t-shirts.
So more than half of the items are not going into the category that eBay automatically throws you in.
So what my point is, when you're listing something like, for instance, a vintage Harley Davidson t-shirt, you want to make sure that you are at the very least putting it in the main category that it is automatically filtering to, and that is men's t-shirts, because somebody who may not be a super savvy buyer is just going to look at these results. They're not going to necessarily know that, like, oh, if I go look under collectibles or eBay Motors or back out to all, I'm going to see more results. They're just going to look at this. So you want to make sure that you're putting it in the right spot. Now, not everything's going to work out this way. So like, here's another one. Let's see, if you just put NASCAR t-shirt, that's automatically going to pull it out, or it's automatically going to filter down to a NASCAR category. But let's say you go, let's see, I think I had Let's get out of here. Now, if you looked up DuPont racing jacket, that's actually not going to filter it down. It stays in all. It doesn't filter down to NASCAR. But if you put in, let's see, I feel like, which one did I? If you do Jeff Gordon racing jacket, which a lot of times are these DuPont ones, that one does filter down to NASCAR. So you just want to be aware when you're listing something where it's going to be filtered down to, because it does make a difference. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So why don't we talk about starting a new listing? You do it this way. What does that mean? What are you doing?
So basically, I go to my main page and I will go to, sorry, I need to go to.
Wait. I'll show you.
Where's your main eBay page?
So you go from this active listing page.
Right.
It's right here where it says create a listing.
Yep, I go to listings and then I go to create a listing. And then I just start typing. I'll start typing what my title is going to be.
Let's do that on this one right here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't know. What do I have? Let's call it a vintage Harley Davidson t-shirt, right? Since you already did that. Sorry, this is not my computer, so I'm a little slow right now. So I'll take this, and I do not ever drop into what they are telling me to drop in here. I don't use that as a suggestion. I just go to get started. Continue without selecting a product.
See now, guys, I have never used this process for listing, but it's, you know, everybody's going to have their own way that works for them. And for this, it works for Vicky, and then my way works for me.
And then I will just go in and automatically see it pops you right here. So the first thing I do is I never do a subtitle. That's not worth anything. Custom label, I don't use those. I know a lot of other people do. So that's where you would put that in. And then people use the custom label for inventory tracking and that kind of thing. I don't use it for anything. So then I will double check right here. The category that it pops you in is generally the most popular one. So if that's correct, in my opinion, this is what I'm going to look for. I will, you know, grab one of these categories. And for me, this is the category that I would have used. So I will leave it there. If it's not, or if it doesn't show up here, then you go into search categories.
Yeah. But notice how the third option, click on that. Oh, you already went on it. It's okay. The third option was collectibles, transportation, motorcycles, American, Harley Davidson, t-shirts. Now, somebody might think like, well, it's a Harley Davidson t-shirt. I'd rather be in the quote unquote correct category. And you put it in that. But again, like I showed you before, it automatically filters it to men's t-shirts. So you want to make sure that that's your main category. And then if you think it's really important and you want to have a second category and pay a little extra to do that, you can do that.
Shannon, sell one like this is the simplified eBay listing tool. Unfortunately, Katie and I don't use that, nor do we have access to that. Once you're using advanced, it doesn't show you that option anymore.
No, but that's basically what I do. Sell similar.
No. She's talking about sell one like this. That is the simplified format, not sell similar.
Right, but it's not called sell similar when you're looking at somebody else's listing. So for instance, if I click on this, have one to sell. Okay, sell now.
That's not what she's talking about.
Gotcha. Okay, guys, here's the first step in our breakup.
I'm just saying she's talking about a screen that neither one of us can show because we don't have it.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to this one and get back to my my listings screen. So now for me, particularly because I sell a lot of the same stuff, it's way easier for me to just do sell similar off of my own items. So like you can see yesterday, I listed a ton of t-shirts. So it just makes sense to list off my own stuff. But I also will go, if it's something I haven't sold before, or if I'm curious about the pricing, I might go off somebody else's listing and do sell now. And it basically brings me to the same spot, as opposed to, you know, it's all around same way to get to the different ways to get to the same kind of template, basically.
Right.
So let's say I'm going to do a t-shirt, and we're just going to use this to kind of go through the whole process of filling out this form. So I do sell similar off of my own stuff because then it has everything kind of pre-filled out. And then I'll change the title to whatever my new thing is. But you can see, so I personally use the second category when it comes to vintage t-shirts, and I'll explain why. And you don't need to do this because it does cost money, but I have my main category for t-shirts, but I do sell a lot of vintage t-shirts. And I know that there are people out there who are super hardcore about collecting vintage t-shirts. So I personally feel like it's worth the, let's say 600 vintage t-shirts I have to spend that $30 more a month to have it in that second category. So when people, if somebody who's like a big vintage t-shirt person is browsing the vintage t-shirt category, mine is going to show up there. That's just a personal preference. I may be wasting my money. I might be throwing it away, but I just choose to do that. But the most important thing is making sure that your main category is going to be where people are going to, the most people are going to see it. All right. So first thing we need to talk about, titles.
Titles. We do
What do we
them,
want to say
we
about
do them
titles?
very differently.
We do.
Okay, so there are a few things to say about titles. First of all,
I'm actually going to take the screen share off because I think we can talk about this for a little bit before actually getting into showing it. So go ahead.
So first thing about titles is that eBay gives you however many characters that they have there.
It's 180.
You think it's 180. It used to be a lot less.
Or no, 90. Sorry.
Use as not 180. Yeah, use as many. I think that's Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's like 80 or 90.
Use as many as they give you. If you, whatever you can use to fill up that title, then you should do that. There used to be a time when I think we had 37 characters or something like that, and it was never enough. The fact that there's all this room means if you can at all use it, and you should be putting keywords in that title and filling them up. The second thing is that when you are looking at a listing on your phone or on mobile truncates the listing title. So what that means is that they're not seeing the entire title unless they're expanding. And most people are not going to do that when they're doing a search. They're going to just look at, this list of 10 items, and they're going to see only the first portion of your title. So that being said, you need to front load your title. That means you want to put your most important words in the first 60 characters, I believe.
Yeah, we'll try it. What you want to do is you want to try and put yourself in the position or the mind of a buyer and think about if somebody was going to buy this item, what would they put into a search? So for instance, Harley Davidson, of course they're going to put Harley Davidson first, probably. If they're looking for a Harley Davidson t-shirt. So it's like, you want to make sure you have your brand in there. If the brand is important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some occasions where the brand is not the most important
thing. Lots of times on vintage, brand is not important.
Right, vintage t-shirts generally don't really matter.
Yeah.
Although I like having screen stars in there if I have the room for it. But when it comes to certain brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Pendleton, things like
Levi's,
that.
Whatever.
The brand is super important, and that should be right in the front, potentially the very first word. So you just got to think about like what will people be searching for, and making sure that you have those most important words first.
Yeah, I don't put my brand first. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it is definitely within the first couple of words. Yeah. So everybody's a little bit different, but you definitely want to put the important things like brand if it's brand, size, and what the item is are always going to be your first few words. And then you can put the other things. Yeah. Like I would start my listings when it's vintage. I start my listing with vintage, like vintage 90s. I'll put vintage 90s. And then someone asked apostrophe or no. I don't put the apostrophe, but I don't think it makes a difference whether you do or you don't. I just tend to use my my space for something else.
Yeah.
So I will do vintage and I will spell out the word vintage. And then I will put 90s, 90s.
No apostrophes, Junk Jones, because here the great thing, one of the things about eBay is they are one of the best, if not the best platform as far as the search goes. They have a great search and it picks up stuff that, like, let's say there's certain words that people tend to put into one word and other people put into two words. Either way, you're going to get all of the results, if that makes sense. The apostrophe, there's no reason to have the apostrophe because it just takes up characters. And so, no, I would leave those out.
Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is that I will put, if something is new, I will put new in the title. Katie doesn't do that, but I do
sometimes.
If I have the room, I'm going to put new, and new is going to be my first word. So, and the reason why is you can't always tell. Again, you've got to think of how a shopper is going to be looking at your item when it is on mobile, because more than 40% of purchases are coming from mobile. So you need to make your listing mobile friendly. And I'm not talking about just using the mobile friendly code. I'm talking about you want people to be able to look at your item when they're looking at their list and they're scrolling and sitting on their couch watching Netflix. You want them to be able to see your listing and know what you're selling. So you want to make sure that you spell the words out. Jerry is saying that's a very good tip, and it's true. It used to be years ago on eBay, we used to use acronyms for everything, right? So NWT, new with tags, NWOT, new without tags.
Technically called initialism.
Whatever. EUC, excellent used condition. Yeah. All of those things are things of the past. Do not use any of those things in your titles anymore. All they do is mess up the search. They're not new without box, NWOB, new with box, new inbox, NIB, all of that stuff. No, do not use those acronyms any longer. They're frowned upon by eBay. They were something we used for years and years and years. We used to always put, the old school eBayers remember putting in your description a code, like a key code for your customers. This is what this means. This is what this means. And it would be in your template. You don't want to do that anymore. So if you have listings that are doing that, as you're refreshing your listings, as you're refreshing your old listings, I'm not saying go in and change everything now, but as you refresh listings, remove those words and either spell them out or get it out of your listing.
Speaking of which, going back to, she had mentioned vintage versus VTG. It used to be, people would say, you know, we put VTG in your title because it takes less letters, and eBay treats VTG and vintage the same in the search. And that is absolutely not true. Now, eBay will give you search results for things that say vintage in the title if you search with VTG. That is true. However, they are not weighted the same. And so I would say the majority of buyers are going to search vintage as opposed to VTG. And if you put VTG in your title, you will come up in the search results, but you will be down below any listings that spell out vintage in the title. So what I do now, I used to, a year ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said, yeah, just put VTG in the title.
Same.
Now I put spelled out vintage in all of my titles. Now, one thing I do is down in my description, I always basically copy and paste my title into the first line of the description. And there I change vintage to VTG, just because I want to make sure that if somebody does search using VTG, it also will show up relatively high in the search, because I want to make sure I'm catching both of those versions. But I think vintage is more important than VTG. So that's super, super important that you do that.
Let's see. Make sure you spell all words out, as Jerry said. Do you use all caps? No, absolutely not. All caps is terrible.
It looks too yelly.
You want to capitalize the first letter of every word, but just like you see here on Katie's. Well, sorry,
I'm going to go ahead. I'll go ahead and share it. I don't use hyphens either. I just do a space personally. So t-shirt. T-shirt, I do not put T-shirt. I put
I do for t-shirt. That's pretty much the only thing, because they actually, those things do search entirely the same on eBay.
Yeah. So for me, it's more about consistency, and so that's another way that Vicki and I are different. I'm super, super particular about making sure all of my titles follow an exact kind of formula and look. I don't like having any like all caps and stuff like that. And occasionally, I know Vicki, when she does like a sell similar for somebody else's listing, if they used all caps, it doesn't really bother her that much to use
Sometimes
those.
I'll change it, sometimes I won't. Depends on how lazy I am.
Right. And that's one of those things that like would drive me crazy. So I always do it the same way. So we have different ways that we do it. So like so again, with t-shirts, not really important that the brand here is jerseys. So I don't even have jerseys in my title. So in this case, I will put whatever I think is the most interesting of the t-shirt. So here I just have Tonopod test range t-shirt. And then the way I do it, I don't put vintage as the first word, whereas Vicki would. I just don't. So I have this, then it says t-shirt, then I have vintage 90s, and then I'll add some more keywords here. And if it is made in the US, I like to put that in the title, because to people who are vintage collectors, that is important. So I do think that matters. And then I put my size last. I believe you do yours closer to the front.
I do put my size closer to the front, but I do made in the USA at the end, just like you.
Yeah. So,
and yeah, Sandy, people do really use vintage as a keyword. I know that I do, because I like vintage clothing. So I will definitely search using vintage.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So Hustle and Grind in Canada says eBay search engine is Cassini. That's correct. That's the name of their search engine. That's been their name forever. Nobody knows how this search engine works. Nobody. Nobody knows what their algorithms are and how they work. We just know that they have them. So we have to use their best suggestions on eBay's best practices on what to use and how to use it. So definitely, brand, gender, size, product, maybe.
Personally, I don't put gender out if there's not enough room. I mean, that's just me.
Personally, I don't put gender in my titles ever, unless I have extra room.
And the truth is, we're going to get into this, but
you're correct. No apostrophes, no stars, no symbols, all that kind of stuff. That's absolutely right.
See, Natalie, the great thing about eBay search is that t-shirt with a space and t-shirt with a hyphen and t-shirt all one word, they all search the same as far as we know. eBay's really good about that, because they want to be able to like bring the best results to their buyer. But yeah, I mean, so the other thing is that when somebody's doing a search on eBay using Cassini, as you say, it's not just searching the title, it's searching other things like the description, it's searching your item specifics. So you want to have your most important keywords up here in the title, but there's other ways to make sure, if you have other words that you want to include, there's other ways to make sure that those get included. And so we'll get to that here in a minute.
All right, and Christy Lindsay asked, would you suggest taking these out of the title but add them spelled out in the description? I think you mean, I'm not sure what you mean by these, but I would say if you mean like women's, men's, children's, that type of thing, I definitely put those in my description somewhere, but I also have that listed based in my item specifics, which is something different.
Juliana, does putting the little quotation mark as inches mess up search with stuffed animals? You know, I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm really not sure about that.
Sometimes I will add that in my title and sometimes I won't. Generally, I don't put that unless it's a specific thing. So, you know, I definitely will use it for in the item specifics as you, as you're going through item specifics, there are spots when you're listing plush where you're going to put in, you can do a drop down for size and then definitely put it in your description.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, so we can get through this hopefully. So you got your condition, you got your UPC, obviously there isn't one for this. And then we have condition description. Now, I know you're pretty naughty and a lot of times you won't put anything there.
Sometimes I do. I will use condition description to highlight if there are any flaws.
Yeah. Now, I definitely use it to highlight flaws, but if there are no flaws, like for instance, this particular t-shirt actually is pretty much like new, but I wasn't gonna say it was new, but I just say good use condition. Now I know those are subjective words to say it's good, but whatever. I'm not saying it's in the most amazing, perfect condition you've ever seen. I just say, hey, it's in good use condition. And then I always put see pics for detailed measurements. Now I'm going to go off my screen share here real quick because we were just talking about mobile search and like when people are looking and maybe they won't look at the description. But let me show you. Here's one of my listings. I'm going to show you. This is on the mobile app. See if I can get this to show up here. Now, if you notice when they go down this listing, see where it says item description? It actually has what I put into my that condition description. So you can see right here. So it tells them, hey, look at the pics if you want to see the detailed measurements. So that hopefully people are going to look at.
That's probably a really good tip that I should do.
Right.
Because I write that in my description.
And then I also have it, if you look at my, if they open it up to my description, you can see I have like the title again, but then I also say again, see pictures for detailed measurements. So I give them two opportunities to see that, but most important is that you can see that right on the main screen in the mobile app if somebody is looking at it from the mobile point of view.
I do put it in my description and I will say the exact same thing. It's my last sentence. It's see last photo for detailed measurements is what I say.
Yep. All right. I'm going to go back and share again. All right, so
that is a good tip. We should probably listen to her, Sandra. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, so then talking about pictures, you want to make sure, first of all, you want to make sure your pictures are good. And by the way, once we get towards the end of this whole spiel and show, we're actually going to go in and look at some examples of what we consider quote unquote bad listings, or at least listings that are lacking, that are going to affect their ability to sell for top price. And we're going to look at some issues. And some of them, it's the pictures that are not so good. And then there's other stuff, but you want to make sure that you have good pictures, because I want somebody
at least one good picture. Make your gallery photo be your best, brightest, clearest photo of the best part of the item.
Yeah. So now let's go back and look at this really quick. When somebody looks at, so this is a list view. Let's look at gallery view. Look at all these pictures. Okay. Now let's see which ones look most attractive. I mean, there's ones that are kind of like the full picture. I don't know what's going on here.
It's on the bed.
This one's on a floor.
I don't think the floor ones are that bad if it's a nice clean floor or carpet. Like they don't bother me.
It depends. This one's like kind of dark and it's back and it's like hanging on some door. Anyway, so these are kind of like mediocre. They're okay. This one's like super far away. I know that they think that they're getting the whole thing in the picture, but look at how much smaller it is and it's not using up all the space. So personally, when I do it, I really like to have this first picture. I want to have it fill up the entire picture. So yes, the second picture is going to be the entire t-shirt, but I like having the first one be a closer up picture so you can actually see this. And when it shows up in a search, it's going to stand out more than other t-shirts that are farther away and like darker lighting. And then, yeah, we have 12 pictures we can put in, but guys, come on, it's a t-shirt. How many pictures can you have of a t-shirt? I've got the main photo, I've got this photo, I've got a little close up so you can see the quality of the image. I've got the back, I've got the tag, and then this is where I put my Sizely photograph, and so somebody can go look at this and look, they can see exactly what the measurements are in inches and centimeters because I do sell internationally. So that's basically how I do it. But you want to have, I would say, what, like maybe at least 5 pictures if possible?
I think minimum 5 pictures, because if you can get 5 pictures out of, I mean, of course, if you're selling a postcard or something, I mean, there's only so many, but
still, you wouldn't have 1 picture.
No, you'd have 2.
For instance, I'm selling vinyl record soundtracks now. It is crazy how many of the listings only have a picture of the front. Like, why wouldn't you at least have a picture of the back so people can see what the back looks like? I just don't get it. Like, there's no reason ever to only have 1 picture. Never, ever, ever, ever. Never.
Okay, I got it. So Christy, yes, things like EUC, NWOT, NWB, yes, I would absolutely put that spelled out in the description for sure. If something is in excellent use condition or new without tags, absolutely.
But that stuff is going to be
but not in the title.
But new without tags, you put it right here.
Correct. But I also copy it and put it in my description.
Oh, that's true. So what I will do, so let's say this was a new without tags. I do new without tags, and I'll actually put here new without tags. I spell it out in my condition description.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the. I don't put it here in the condition description. I put it in the.
All right, so let's move it on down. So now talking about item specifics, these are super, super important. So all that stuff that maybe you didn't have room for in your title, this is an opportunity to get in there. So like I didn't have jerseys in my title, but of course you have to have a brand here. So I got my brand, got my style, got my size. It's cotton blend. I've got my color. So I didn't put red in my title, but if somebody searched for a red vintage t-shirt, this would be included in the search results. I got my short sleeve. This is where you put short sleeve or long sleeve. Theme, here's a little tip. Theme is one place where you can add a keyword. So maybe there's a keyword that you think that people would potentially search for, but you can't quite fit it in the title. You can put it right here. I have U.S. Air Force. That's not in my title, but I can put it here for theme. You got your pattern, neckline. And what do you think is the most important part when you're filling out your item descriptions? What do people need to make sure they're doing?
Use the actual available drop-down items for specifics. Do not create your own. This is where people mess things up. Nobody is searching by your combination of green, yellow, and red for your color. If somebody will put green/red/orange, nobody is searching that way. So when the reason that you have item specifics is that when people are doing a search and there are 5,000 red t-shirts in the men's category, they're often, if they're savvy buyers, they are going to narrow down that search by using item specifics. So put that in right there.
We're going to try vintage running t-shirt. I'm just going with t-shirts here. Vintage running t-shirt. Now this is what all those item specifics, the reason you have those, so let's first of all let's just go into the t-shirts category because this will help us a little bit here. So we're down into t-shirts.
Okay.
So all your item specifics is this stuff right here.
So this is how I shop, and this is how I think a lot of savvy buyers are going to shop. So if you scroll up a bit.
Yep.
The reason why you want to use item specifics is that someone's going to look in here. Okay. So they're going to say, okay, I wear a size medium. Let me get down to a size medium. That leaves me 149 results. Great. Now I want a short sleeve shirt. That's going to give me 116 results. And I think I want one that's red. Yep. Now I have 9 items to choose from, starting with 800.
But let's back it out. And what if, let's see all. Let's see what it shows here. It's going to show not specified. It's going to be all these like different potential options that you have. So, and then like you had put in medium. So let's just see all for sizes. It's going to have like these different sizes that you can have. So now here's something that I've seen people do. So you can actually type in your own thing. People will put in something like, and it'll be like, they'll have it like in all caps or something ridiculous like that. And it'll say medium, but really measures more like a large. I swear, guys, people will do this. Or they'll type in here something like, pit to pit. I know we don't say pit to pit. Pit to pit.
No, pit to pit is disgusting.
7,000 inches. Okay, so
that's another thing. If you're using the words pit to pit, change that now. No armpit, no pit.
I do it with trigger. I do underarm to underarm.
Underarm to underarm, chest, bust, one of those terms. Get the word armpit or pit out of your listing and description. Always. It's disgusting.
Yeah. But see, but what I wanted to show is if you look at the colors here, there's 7 different options for colors. And this is based on those predetermined colors that were in the drop down. But if you go to see all, there's more than 7. There's a couple more, and there's not specified. I'm going to guess that not specified is probably to somebody who said kind of a orangish red with a little bit of yellow. So basically what you're doing is you're just ensuring that your stuff's not going to show up. So you want to put whatever the dominant color is. It's super, super important. Okay, let's go back to our little listing page. So basically, yeah, you want to fill this out as completely as possible. And again, material's another one. People will fill this out and say 70% or 50% cotton, 50% polyester. But guess what? There is no option that's going to show up on the side of the screen for things that's going to say half cotton, half polyester. So you want to pick cotton blend because that's what it is.
Lisa is cringing in her chair for being an offender. You should be cringing, Lisa. And pit to pit is not something that I would ever use. I sell a lot of vintage clothing, you know, and I've been selling a lot of vintage clothing for a very long time. I will definitely use bust, chest, or underarm to underarm.
I do underarm to underarm, but I will say that probably men's clothing is not going to be as important, but you want to lose some sales in women's clothing, say pit to pit. All right.
Okay, so the other thing too is color. Color is a really, okay, so you're not always going to have everything be a solid color. Maybe it's red and white. Maybe it's black and white. Maybe it's plaid, whatever. So a lot of people will put multicolor. Multicolor is okay if you have lots of multiple colors. If you've got something that's red and white, pick red. You're going to want to pick the predominant color of the item.
Mm-hmm.
The predominant color is, sorry, I'm trying to read the chat at the same time. So you're going to pick predominant color, and that's what people are going to search by. It's okay if it's red and white. It's okay if it's red and yellow striped or something like that.
Allison says, who wears women's clothing? Losers, that's who. Am I right? Am I right, Allison? Am I right, Sandra? Come on.
Captain, I use hairy pit to pit. Ew. Ew. Okay. So you want to choose the correct color, and a lot of people will put in their own color. It's maroon. It's, you know, fuchsia. It's whatever. Teal. Nobody is going to search that way. That when they're searching drop down, that's not what they're going to find.
Not drop down. Now, let's say you have a very obviously teal t-shirt, going back to t-shirts. I always put blue. I choose blue when it comes to the colors in the item, just in the item specifics. But in my title, either in my title up top or down in my description, I will add the word teal. And so you can see right here, so going back to titles, see how I have what the title is up here. And then if you scroll down to my description, I basically copy and paste that title, but then I add in United States Air Force, spelled out United States, Lockheed F-117. So I add in, these are like additional keywords that you can basically get included in search results that you couldn't fit into your title. All right, so
Minia, perfect. Blue in the title, blue, teal, and green in the description. Yep. Perfect. That's exactly how you would do it if it were teal.
Absolutely.
Same with the item specific. You'd pick blue, and then you could put in your title, in your title or your description, all of those things.
Now, like I was saying before, when somebody does a search, it not only looks into your title, it also looks at the item specifics, and it looks at your description. So here's another little tip that you can potentially do. See where here it says add your own item specific. That's basically like ways that you can add more keywords. I don't use this one a lot. Usually it's enough to use the theme and to fill out the item specifics and to add a couple words to my description. But this is like a possible way. Brand, material, you can put anything here really, and then put in something here. It just adds a little bit extra to your
if you want to be extra.
If you want to be extra.
Yeah, crotch is right up there with pit to pit. Might be worse even. Mm-hmm. Definitely use rise. Crotch if you have to sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's
personally, I like to put that I start my measurement where the good Lord split you. You think that'll work?
Weirdo.
Anyway, all right, so let's move on to the next thing, description. Keep it simple, guys. Keep it simple. How many
it used to be okay. So let me just say, a lot of people, if you're old school eBayer, if you've been selling on eBay for a long time, you might remember back when the description used to be, you need to describe your item as if you have no photos, and you need to take photos as if you have no description. That was the way that you would sell on eBay. And back in the day, you would want to tell a story about everything. This shirt was worn to the prom in 1975, and my brother took my cousin, and now they're married. And I don't know, whatever. You'd write a friggin' novel about every single item, especially if it was vintage, an item of vintage clothing or vintage origin or antique. You want to have provenance. In some cases, you're still going to want to do that, but you used to write an absolute novel with every single description, and there were these big flowery.
This was in the days of MySpace. Remember MySpace? You could customize it, and you could have like your own background and different music,
right.
And you could like put in like code to change like the way your page looked. And it's like, that's how eBay was too. You could put pictures and have like 5 different colors and sizes of font. And
yeah,
that was acceptable, but that's because
and 3 years ago, I still had that, because that was the way you were still doing things 3 years ago. I still had, you know, background templates that had shiny things, and they were customized to depending on the item I was selling and all that kind of stuff. But now eBay wants you to be mobile friendly, and those things are not mobile friendly. So,
and it just looks unprofessional and tacky now, because it looks like old school websites, and I mean everything just looks a lot cleaner nowadays. And so if you want to keep up with the times, but speaking of, you're talking about mobile, so let's go back. I'm not sharing the screen anymore because I wanted to show this just one more time. That listing I was showing you guys, something like 50% of sales on eBay are done through mobile. So it's super important. So you go look at the description. This is what it should look like. If it's mobile friendly, it's not going to be, the letters are not going to be too small. Sorry if that's not.
Left aligned, 12 to 14 font.
Yeah, look at that font. It looks good. It's succinct. It's short. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just the basics. And I mean, you know, this is a t-shirt. I don't really need to give a whole description of where the t-shirt came from. I don't need to have a bunch of stuff in there about how I'm a single mom supporting my family, and these sales are really important to me. And just so you know, here's my return policy. And just so you know, my stuff comes from a pet-free, smoke-free home. Because listen, guys,
environment.
People can assume that's the case. And if they want to ask, they can ask. But in my mind, from a buyer point of view, before I even started selling on eBay, when I would go search for something that I wanted to buy, the second I saw the smoke-free, pet-free home, I immediately envisioned in my mind somebody smoking with their dogs and their cats all around them. Like it was like almost like they were overcompensating.
They were triggering the opposite.
It puts that in my mind. I don't know why, but I mean, maybe that's not everybody, but
Allison said my pet smoke in the house. Oh yeah, Junk Jones, my favorite. If you're a scammer, don't buy from me. Yeah, because that's gonna work.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so I think that's good for description. Let's go back here. Let's talk about selling details. So just the basics. Yeah, there's fixed price and there's auction style. We've said this before. I think something like 80% of the things that sell on eBay are sold through fixed price listings as opposed to auction. Buyers pretty much don't want to do auctions. Who wants to wait to find out they're going to win an item? If they want to buy it, they want to buy it now. You know, it's a different world. I mean, I almost never use auctions, but what would you use an auction for?
Something that is rare, something that is.
But what does rare mean?
Rare meaning there are 1 or 2 online, or
none,
something that you need to set a base price for that you think has a collectible audience. There are lots of reasons that you would use auction, but you're not going to be using an auction on most clothing, most shoes,
unless you want to sell it for less than you could sell it for.
Most video game lots. That's a good thing to do an auction, stuff like that. Your things that are rare and highly desirable. That's what you want to use for an auction. Sometimes you want to use auctions to clear out your old stuff, and you do the 99-cent thing. I don't recommend that unless you're charging shipping, because you're going to sell it for 99 cents with free shipping most of the time. But auctions do work for some people. If auction is your format and you are thriving using auctions, I'm not going to tell you to not do that. But
generally, if there's more than one available, you are going to sell it for less than what you would sell it for at fixed price. It's
yeah, and Junk
reality.
Jones, perfect. Not only rare, but with customers. Yes, not just rare, but rare and desirable.
Like there has to be enough people looking for it that there's going to be potential bidding war. If your goal is to sell it for top dollar.
Yeah.
So
most of the time you're not going to use auction. Most of the people that watch our show and do what we do and sell thrifted items or one-off items, that is not going to be your format. You're going to want to do a buy it now, good till canceled.
Yeah, today's buyers, they want what they want and they want it now. And that is what demands a higher price. You can have even a somewhat rare item. If you have one that's in an auction next to one that's a fixed price, somebody's more likely to buy the fixed price, even if it's a higher price than what they might be able to get it for an auction, because they know that for sure they're going to get it, and they're going to get it within a couple of days. So they don't have to wait 7 days to figure it out. All right, so next one, duration, good till canceled. Personally, I do all of my stuff good till canceled. I just kind of feel like every other way entails too much work. I know there's people out there, and I don't really understand exactly. I mean, I sort of understand. They have like the 10-day listings. I sort of get, it's like, yeah, every 10 days it shows up as a new listing. You get the whole new listing thing going on. You also get the like ending soon, but you can get that same thing under a sale. I mean, a sale, it'll say ending soon. If you do sales that only last a few days at a time. But to me, it's like if you do 10-day listings, then that means you're spending 3 times the amount on your listing fees. You're also not giving people enough time to find your stuff. Like I feel like a 10-day turnaround is not really quite enough, but that's just my personal opinion. Good till canceled. I don't know. I feel like it's the most obvious choice. What do you think?
I think the good till canceled is, I don't recommend having good till canceled and let them just sit there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. That for sure is not the way to do it. I do good till canceled because I have 2,500 listings, and there is no way that I am going to be relisting several hundred a day and not relisting something in error or messing something up. So 2,500 listings, I do good till canceled. And what I do is I will sort by my oldest listings, and I will go in and rework the oldest listings every few days, at least a few times a week. I will go in and end or sell similar or relist my items. So I have good till canceled, yes, but I don't have any items in my store that have not been touched in more than, like right now, my oldest are about 4 to 5 months old, and even those I need to work on.
Yeah.
The fact is that if your item is good till canceled and has been listed on eBay for 90 days or more as a good till canceled, it is suppressed in search.
Right. Yeah. So hustle and grind. Like when we say good till cancel, it's like what Vicky says. We're not saying list it and forget it and wait for 2 years to try to sell it. But personally, I think like 10 days is way too short. I honestly think 30 days is too short, but I think, giving it a couple of months is good. And, once it's over 90 days, then it's too old, and then you can end it and relist it. But if you're doing 10 days, that's a crazy amount of work. If you're doing even 30 days, it's added work, and you're potentially missing out on sales. So I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
right.
I'm about the same. I've tried it both ways, and I've always been a good till canceled person. And then I went to 30 days. I saw no difference in my sales. And I did it. And when I say I try something, I didn't mean I try it for 2 weeks. I tried it for about 5 months.
Yeah. All right. So pricing, that's the one place where Vicky and I we price higher than other people generally. So that's probably the one place where we push ourselves a tiny bit down in the search. But like I said, there's a huge list of factors that contribute to you being higher in the search. And so I'd rather have a higher price and have a better listing in every other way than having the lowest price. Because yes, I think that there is a certain amount of like quote unquote competitive pricing that will give you a tiny bit of boost in the search. But again, that's amongst so many different things.
I'm going to answer a couple of these questions that are here right now. So Liz, Griff was on eBay podcast yesterday. He said there's no difference between sell similar versus relist. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Griff. There is a difference. Sell similar creates a new item number, and it's a brand new listing. Relist is keeping the same item number, same watchers, and same information on the listing. So I'm going to respectfully disagree. Griff's the man, but there is a difference between the two. And when you're creating a new listing, you are creating it's a new item, as opposed to an item that is stale and has been sitting in your rotation for a long time.
Yep. Okay. And then of course there's best offer. I like doing best offer on everything. I price my stuff accordingly to leave room for offers. This is part of my whole like remove all obstacles. I do believe there are some buyers who really like being able to make offers. And so this is just another way to kind of attract the maximum number of potential buyers. So I like that. You do have to be able to separate your emotions from business, because some people get really upset when they get lowballed. And also there's the fact that when you have best offer, even if it is a lowball offer that somebody makes, it brings activity to your listing that is not possible if you don't have best offer. So it adds another level of another potential avenue for activity to happen in your listing that pushes it up in the search for other potential buyers. Because so often I have somebody make an offer, it's a lowball offer, and somebody else swoops in within 15 minutes and buys it at full price. Happens all the time. So if nothing else, best offer just adds activity to your listings.
Lori asked a question for hard goods in the condition field. I'm trying to not start with something negative. Do you repeat a version of the title in there? I don't necessarily put anything in the condition field unless there is something wrong with the item. In the condition field, I will highlight anything that's wrong if it's missing a part or if there's something incomplete or something like that. But I do always put it in my description if there's something wrong. So I'm not exactly copying every single thing that you see on a box. If it's something in a box or whatever, I will just do the highlights. I'm not typing every single little thing. And there was another question in there. Angie wants to know, how do you search for your oldest listings? Can you quickly pop into a listing and show her how to do that?
Yeah, let's see. This is one I did sell somebody. I can just go back here. So, come on. Why is it not? It's not letting me. It's not letting me.
Just go to your main page. Why are you going backwards?
Because it's easier for me.
Okay, so Junk Jones, you sell some or you decide not to add promoted listing, do you still have to pay the fee if the previous viewer now buys it after you've relisted? Yes. If someone purchases using, oh, that's actually a good question because you've got a different item number. I'm not sure about that.
No. If you do sell similar, that's a whole different listing. It doesn't matter if somebody because your old listing that you ended is a totally different listing. So if you do sell similar and you no longer are using promoted listings for that item, and somebody who, I mean, you would never know if somebody did this, but if somebody came and clicked on your item and bought it, then no, it's not going to have any, you're not going to be charged a fee, because it's all about the algorithms and the data. There's no trail between that listing and the listing that had the promoted listings.
A question from Noelle. How do you feel about eBay just setting a price that keeps people from offering below $10 on a $25 item? I don't have that on any of my listings. So you may have something checked off that I'm not familiar with.
If you're talking about the automatic decline, so when you do your best offer, let's see, where is it? When you do best offer, you can have automatically accept offers of at least blank or automatically decline offers lower than blank. I never do this because
neither do I.
Because even if let's say they offer $2, I want to come back and it's opening a conversation. So first of all, I've had people do super low ball offers and I've been able to bring them up to an acceptable level. Secondly, sometimes people make mistakes and they forget to add a 0 or something like that. I just don't ever want to automatically decline. I'll decline in the second round if it's clear that there's no way they're going to come even close to mine. Then yes, I'll decline later, but I never decline the first offer. So I don't like having automated anything. Okay, so let's go to. There's something else I was going to say, but
Sandra says, I don't do it either, but eBay's been adding auto decline to mine. Huh. I have not seen that happen.
Yeah, I don't know. You should be able to go take it off. So let's get down into the shipping details. So this is where you have all of your policies. This is where it really helps to have those business policies, because then it's really easy to go. You go here, you can see all my different shipping policies, return policies, stuff like that. So that helps a lot. And then we'll just go on down to weight and dimensions. Now I know you put your dimensions in, don't you?
I don't necessarily. I do if it's something that's bigger than 12 by 12 by 12. Mm-hmm. You have to put something there that doesn't let you go through.
No, you don't.
Oh, it lets you. There was a while there it wasn't letting you go through if you didn't have anything there.
Because I never put anything in my dimensions, but I don't sell anything oversized. So that's it. It would matter if you have something that or think is going to be oversized, right?
Angie says, have her go back.
To what?
Go back to sort by date.
Oh, sorry. That's what I was going to show. Okay. So when you're looking at your listing page, now you have start date. Now you might not have it on yours, because if you go right here and hit customize, this is going to tell you, this is where you pick all the things that you want to be able to see. So you want to make sure that you have start date checked here in order to be able to do this. So I have it checked here. So start date right here. Currently I have it to what, the most recent ones, and you can do it this way. Click on that again, and it'll show oldest listing. So I'm actually like way behind. I've been really terrible. I was doing well for a while, but I haven't ended any old listings in a while. So this is literally a year old. That's not good. I should not have a year-old listings. I really want to get up to where nothing is older than 3 months. And so I need to work on that, but that's how you look at what your oldest listings are.
Jennifer said, you revise anything on mobile, it automatically adds the 50% decline. You see, that's why I don't use mobile for anything, and neither does Katie.
I don't either.
Because the mobile is so not user-friendly, I list everything using my desktop or my laptop.
Yep. Okay. So let's look at, so I never put my dimensions in. It's only important if you think it's going to be oversized, because that will potentially change the cost of shipping it, correct?
Correct. If you're using calculated shipping, it definitely changes the cost of shipping.
Yeah. So I don't bother doing it because it takes extra time. There's no reason to.
Well, now that I know I don't have to, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But I usually do put something there, because there was a point where you couldn't get past that step unless you put something there. So I guess they must have taken that off. So when you put in your weight, everybody, again, we do this differently. I put 1 pound or less. I don't put in my ounces. You do, because there's that break point of 8 ounces and under and over.
Because I sell a lot internationally, and I want them to get charged a lower price for 8 ounces and under. But because I sell clothes, it's really, really simple. And I put everything in poly bags. The poly bags weigh about not even a half an ounce. And so I know when I weigh my stuff, I just add on half an ounce and then round up to the closest ounce for my weight. And that way it always charges the correct amount for international sales. So it's really important that you have all of your weights in there if you want to do international sales, particularly because it'll charge the correct amount. All right. All right, so next thing on the list is the promoted listings. Now, this is something that you need to play around with. Personally, when it comes to clothing, it is a pretty saturated market, even with vintage t-shirts. So I personally do trending rates, and I'm okay with that. Not everything ends up selling through the promoted listings, but I like to have that added exposure. And basically what promoted listings does is it just doubles up your impressions, because it's going to show your item twice, and depending on how much you do your rate at, they can only put so many promoted listings on the first page. And so if your first page has 50 results or 100 results, and there's 1,000 sellers that are doing promoted listings, they're not all going to show up on the first page. So I know people say there's no difference, but I'm going to say that I don't believe that to be the case. I do think that the higher your trending rate is, the higher up in the search it's going to be. But again, there's a million other things that contribute to the search placement. This is just one of many. So.
Yep, I don't do trending rate usually. So again, something we're different on. I'm not all of my categories that I sell in are saturated, so I don't necessarily need to do the trending rate.
Yeah. No, well, it really depends on she says she never does promoted listings. I think it really depends on what it is you're selling. If you have something that's rare that somebody searches for, there's only going to be 5 results on the page, then do you need to pay for promoted listings? No, that would be silly.
Right.
But if there's going to be like t-shirts, if there's going to be a million things listed, it's like, I want my stuff to be seen. So it just depends. I don't know what it helps. I don't know what impact it has with Google.
All I know is that I sell 30% of my listings, 30 to 40% of my listings are sold via promoted listings. And for me, that is about $40,000 last year. And that $40,000 cost me, I believe, I did the numbers, and I think it was about $1,300. So if that $40,000 in sales was a result of me paying $1,300 extra in fees, then that was worth it to me.
Yeah. The reality is that impressions do matter. Impressions mean that your listing is being seen by buyers, and the more they see it, the better. It's the same thing, when you're watching TV and you see an ad, when you're watching anything and you see an ad, when you go by a billboard and you see an ad, all that stuff, it gets into your brain, and then you want to buy it. That's just the reality of advertising. And so when you're doing something like promoted listings, it is putting it in front of people's eyeballs twice. And they're more likely to see your listing. So you can decide if it's worth paying for, but it does do something.
And yes, as you are listing right now, it is automatically going to check that item off. So when you're doing a listing, you need to make sure, if you don't want to do it, you need to uncheck it, and you need to put in, or if you want the rate to be whatever, you need to put your rate. your, whatever you want there. So.
Yep. Oh, and Liz says, remember promoted listings also show in others listings. Some have an entire banner of promoted listings. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you're paying for something but it does give you more exposure. So you just have to decide if that's worth it to you. I mean, we can have all kinds of debates over whether or not eBay should be getting more of our money. But if this is the way that the platform works now and you want the most exposure, I mean, it's something that you need to consider. All right, so let's go to, we've got some examples here, guys. Actually, no, first I want to show really, really quick, just really, really quick. I'm going to show Etsy. Now, we're not as well versed in the Etsy universe, but there's a lot of similarities. Now, Etsy does make it a little bit simpler, like your stuff's either listed or it's not. There's not really any options as far as like how long you're gonna list it. You either have a live listing or you can deactivate it. Like you can just go and deactivate it. That's pretty much the only way to do it. And it automatically renews every, 4 months?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way it works. And so you have to manually end it if you want to end it. There's no presets you can put in to change that. So basically, when it comes to, again, I do all the same type of stuff. So the easiest thing for me is to just copy listings. So if I'm going to do another t-shirt, I'll just use the same t-shirt. I just go and copy the listing. And they have 10 pictures. Man, when I started, I think originally it was only like 3 pictures. I think when I started, it was like 5.
It was 5.
And now it's 10.
And 5 was tough because a lot of stuff on Etsy is vintage. Well, for me, everything I sell is vintage because I don't sell anything handmade. So for me, 5 photos was nowhere near enough when I first started. Nowhere near enough. Like 3 years ago is when I did my first listing on Etsy, and it was way too difficult to pick the best 5 photos, because especially with vintage clothing.
So what I like is that you've got your 10 photos, and then I usually, on eBay, I have a closer up view of this t-shirt, and then another picture is this t-shirt. What I like about Etsy is that you just take your first picture and you get to zoom it in for the thumbnail. It's optional, but I do that. I zoom it in there. You have more room in your title. So my title is usually a little longer in this, and I get to add in all that extra stuff that I couldn't on my eBay listing. You do have to say like what decade it's from, because it has to be vintage. And then you've got, your category, which you can change if you need to, but it's easiest to just do a sell similar for me because it's going to be all the same stuff. Your size, your color. I do love how they actually have a secondary color. I wish eBay did this as well, because for instance, if you have a striped t-shirt or something like that, you get to pick a secondary color. And then, this is all kind of basically kind of like the item specifics. And so you can't say that you can't do a manual where you make it end in 4 months, but it still is preset to 4-month period. So you can either make it stop after 4 months or automatically renew. And then I have my description, and I actually put my measurements in here too. And then they have tags. It says optional, but again, it's kind of like the whole idea of like the item specifics and keywords. You want to use as many of these as possible, because you're just thinking of like, if somebody searches for this, I want my stuff to show up in their search.
So a couple questions. Junk Jones, why don't you feel the reason you sell less on Etsy is because you charge more plus shipping?
Well, I don't charge shipping on my Etsy, and my Etsy prices are pretty close to eBay. But the reality is, so I think that kind of, I know, but she's giving me a look, you guys.
Like, I'm sorry, I couldn't answer that question.
No, because your answer is going to be completely different. But I can say from my experience, I'm going to take this off of the screen share real quick. I can say from my experience, my prices on Etsy are almost the same as eBay, and I do free shipping. But my fees are lower on Etsy, so I actually make more money on the Etsy ones. But sales are slower on Etsy. It's just a reality.
Well, sales are slower on Etsy because it is a much smaller audience, first of all. eBay is a much larger platform and has millions and millions and millions more buyers than Etsy has. So for me, I have far fewer listings. I have about 800 listings on Etsy versus 2,500 on eBay. They're vintage, so vintage is definitely more long tail items anyway, because they're not consumable, and you have to find the right buyer. My prices are higher, but my Etsy sales definitely support the higher prices because it's a different customer. So I don't care about that. And my clothing, I do free shipping on. I just don't do free shipping on my hard goods on Etsy, which I do on eBay. There's far less competition for the same items, but you have a smaller audience. So that's why you don't sell quite as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll sell, I don't know. Now I'm averaging around 10 items a month on Etsy, which is excellent because it's a higher dollar amount. And lower fees. So
yeah, so Etsy, you know, it's similar in the fact that like you want to get all those keywords in, you want to make sure that you're filling everything out as fully as possible. As far as the age goes, somebody asked about minimum age to be considered vintage. DJ asked that. It's 90. Yeah, it's 99. So anything before 2000. See, it says right here, it has to be before 2000. So 99 or before if you're selling something that's vintage. But yeah, I mean, ooh, it says I haven't ordered. But I feel like if I look at my dashboard, like yes, yes, Etsy overall, like in the last, well, today I sold something for 150. I don't even know what it was, but I'll have to look.
Pendleton robe.
Oh, nice. I sold a Pendleton robe, guys, for $150. What? Remember those Pendleton robes
you stole from
me? Like yesterday, I did $139. I had 3 orders on Etsy, and I actually did a little bit less than that on eBay. My eBay was pretty slow. So sometimes Etsy swoops in, even if I'm not having like as big of sales over the whole month. Actually, it's coming up now. It still is helping to supplement my income, so it's pretty awesome.
Look at that. You've made 200 sales on Etsy.
Woo, woo.
I've only had 80 sales. I think 85 sales.
Woo, woo. Anyway, that's pretty exciting that I sold that robe.
That's really exciting.
Since I don't think I've sold anything on eBay yet. Okay, so next, what are we doing next? This is going to be, you found some of these for us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really quick, guys. Here, I'm going to take this off the screen share real quick, because I have a feeling that we're going to go over a little bit. I did want to say eBay for Business, they do live show every Wednesday, and today they're actually doing 2 of them. And so I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to Audrey over at eBay for Business. And they're doing a show. There's regular shows at 12:30, but today they're doing 12:30 and 1:30. We're going to run, I think, a little bit long because we're going to go into comparing some listings real quick.
We'll probably finish up right before 12:30.
But I wanted to say it before we get to that. So at 12:30 today, they're hosting a couple of different third-party companies. I know, like, you know, we use a lot of different third-party apps and websites and stuff like that. So it's always good to know what's out there. So at 12:30, it's going to be a company called Seller Active. I've never heard of them. Have you? Seller Active.
Mm-mm.
It's something about market data and repricing. So that could be really interesting if you're potentially interested in that.
I've never heard of it.
And then the other one at 1:30 is Solid Commerce. Never heard of them either. And it's something to do with listing and inventory management. So we're talking about listing today. You might want to check out that show at 1:30.
Mm-hmm. And they did have our buddy that just did, you know, Not Your Dad's CPA. Mark, they just had him on eBay's
on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. So if you missed tips on our show, and they may have, I'm sure they covered some different things because everybody's a little bit different. So I would go and take a listen to that because I want to go back and listen to that one too.
Yeah,
so I thought he was super interesting.
Yeah, so right after this show's over, maybe go over to the eBay for Business Facebook page and check out the live video. Give them some support, ask them some questions if you have anything you want to know about. All right, so what we're going to do now is Vicki actually went and pulled some listings to kind of compare. We're not trying to like, you know, shame any sellers out there. I think everybody has room for improvement. So we're just going to look at some listings that we would consider like not so great listings and listings that are a little bit better, and kind of talk about like why they might need improvement and whatnot.
Certain things you can improve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this listing, and again,
let me share. Okay. Let me share. Here you go.
Sorry. So again, there's really, I mean, we could black out the seller's name. I don't know who the seller is. I'm not slamming the seller. Clearly, they're a new seller. I'm just going to say that this listing is not horrible as far as the title.
They got lots of pictures.
The title's good. The pictures are clear. But here's what they did incorrectly. Auction. This item, they put in auction for a run-of-the-mill DVD player. They put it in auction, and they started the auction, I believe, at 99 cents.
Ooh, so they're lucky they even got some more bids on that.
That's my thing.
They also don't accept returns, which, I mean, listen, guys, when it comes to something like this, especially electronics, if it doesn't work, if there's any issues with it, a buyer's going to be able to open an item not as described. They're going to be able to return it. So really the only thing that saying seller does not accept returns is it makes people hesitant to even buy from them because they think that they don't stand by their product. So in my opinion,
and the reality is you can't really say you don't accept returns because eBay it can force you to take returns, especially if something is not as described.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you don't have to do free returns, but you probably should offer returns in case you mess something up. It's going to instill buyer confidence. Okay, so scroll down a little bit. Here's a couple of other things. So they did the item specifics pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say the item specifics are excellent. They just filled in using the UPC code, which I don't know
where automatically I think
populates
all of
this type of stuff, which is difficult to find a UPC code on older electronics item. but they were able to. So that's good. But then go down to the description, their actual description.
Okay.
Tested and working great. That's good. Condition is used. All good. Ship priority mail. That's good. Payment required 1 hour after auction close.
Good luck with that.
No payment will result in item being relisted for 7 days.
So I'm assuming that means that they're going to, if you don't pay within an hour, they're going to cancel your sale, which is a bad move, because you're going to get in trouble with eBay if you're canceling stuff like this.
And also,
you cannot require an hour.
Nobody is sitting on their phone or their computer waiting for auctions to end anymore. I'm sorry, this is not 1989.
Yeah. So yeah, so like you said, this is a newer.
If I buy something in auction, which doesn't happen often because I'm one of those people that searches by buy it now because I don't want to wait for an auction. But if I buy something by auction, it may take me a day to pay for it because I don't realize I've won the auction.
What's the soonest you can open an unpaid case? 48 hours, right?
I think 3 days. I'm not
even 3 days? I think it's 48 hours. So let's just go with 48 hours. I believe you have to wait 48 hours before you can open an unpaid case as a seller. So if you wait an hour and the person doesn't pay, and then you end your listing and relist it, you are going to get
cancel.
You are going to right. You would have to cancel it. That's why I'm sorry, not end listing.
Captain Bill 48 hours.
If you cancel it, and then
because I do 4 days, so yeah. I don't.
If you cancel it and then relist it, that's a ding against your account. You do it enough times, you will be suspended and potentially lose your entire account. So it's a bad idea. If somebody doesn't pay after 48 hours, then you can open an unpaid case. And then you have to wait another 4 days?
4 days before you can close.
Yeah. So guys, be careful. You got to be careful.
Okay, so there's that listing, and then this is my listing that I did yesterday. And I'm not saying that mine is the best by any means. And yes, they're 2 different models, but they're similar. They're both forehead DVD BCR, things here.
Mm-hmm.
So I listed this yesterday. It actually sold within 5 minutes, and I didn't do free shipping, which I normally do. I decided to charge for shipping. I don't know. I mix stuff up every once in a while.
Yep.
But I do have 30-day returns.
Yep.
They're not free returns, but I did a buy it now and it sold. It had good pictures. I don't have a ton in my description. I have the model number.
Yep.
So scroll down a little bit. I have the model number. I fill in the item specifics. I didn't have all the specifics the other person had because I don't have a UPC number that pulled up all of the,
right.
The catalog information.
Right.
So that's it. Tested and working. Includes remote.
Yep. Good job. Good job. All right, let's look at another one. How do you feel about this one?
This is all bad. I'm sorry, truck girl. I don't know who you are, but
your
pictures are awful, honey.
How do you have multi-quantity on a pre-owned pair of jeans, and you have these pictures? Like this picture, only one of them has a cuff that looks exactly like this, and so they've got 2 quantity, and then there's of course
2 sold.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're not saying it's not going to sell, but it's gonna be harder to sell when you have.
Well, and then look at this. Buy it now, $4. Why are you wasting your time to sell anything for $4?
Right.
$7.61. So you're selling something for $4. Your shipping you're making 5 cents on.
Mm-hmm.
If it's $7.55 for, at best, maybe $7.33 if you're top rated.
And they don't accept returns, so it's going to make it harder.
Very little measurements, very few measurements. That's the one thing that you're going to get a lot of returns on is women's clothing if you do not have correct measurements.
Right.
Yeah, Alexa, see, $4. I mean, I might buy them for $4 just to flip them for 50, because honestly, these are vintage, so you could sell them for more.
Yeah. Let's look at this one.
And again, this is not mine. This is a better listing. I just came up because this is a good photo. It's a flat lay, but it's a good flat lay. It's in the UK, no big deal. Doesn't matter where it was from. But this is a good listing, good photo. It's a good posh photo because Pete Posh likes that fuzzy background thing going on. I don't like to see fingers in photos, but that's not.
But at least they're well manicured.
Yep, they're well manicured.
Maybe don't put your fingers in there.
But these are good photos, good listing. This is not somebody using, super expensive software, but it's clean and good listing photo, right? Mm-hmm. Listing photos. They do take returns. Mm-hmm. All of the item specifics are filled in.
Mm-hmm. And then they have all of their measurements.
All of the
measurements. Say crotch. I don't know, guys. But they do have all their measurements in there. Now I would say, the one thing I would say is, because we can see this listing, and who knows, maybe these are super rare jeans that somebody here in the US wants to buy. You do want to make sure you have both measurements if you're trying to sell to more than just your own country. Now, of course, the US,
I saw these as sold, so you know, this came up under sold, so I'm assuming that means that people in the US can see it.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, so let's go. We have one more here. Now this is a really good one I think you came up with. So this one, now remember we talked about the different categories. So first of all, they put this into the vintage category, children's vintage clothing.
Who is buying children's vintage clothing and going to that category?
And I'm going to go ahead and say I can't completely see the, yeah, I can see the tag enough. This is not a vintage jacket. So this isn't even a vintage Nike jacket. And they've got it in the vintage category. So they've really narrowed. If somebody was doing a search for vintage kids Nike jackets, which again, this isn't vintage, it would not, you would automatically pre-populate to just the regular kids category, category. So that's not good.
So this has all this time left. It's on auction. It's probably not going to sell.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be real hard for someone to find this, right?
And to pay $26 for a not actually vintage Nike jacket that with meh pictures, that's gonna be tough.
That's all they got.
Yeah.
No measurements.
And the shipping is way too high.
That's a first class item.
Well, even if it's not a first class item, because they actually say they are sending it priority. They can send this in a padded flat rate, which at most is going to cost them $7.55. So they're overcharging. It looks like they're probably charging by weight. I don't know.
It's also, that's a windbreaker. That can fit first class.
Potentially, but if you choose to do expedited, that's fine. Just have it be a more accurate cost, because people aren't going to want to pay that much for shipping. And again, doesn't take returns. So it's going to make it difficult.
So this person has they have a bunch of things against them and very little going for them unless somebody is searching to buy this for resale. Now, nobody's going to be searching to buy children's anything for resale for the most part, because that's just not going to, you know, that's just not going to sell for much.
Yeah. All right.
Now, but on the other hand, this one was done well.
Now, I would suggest not having it hang on a door, but even when I started out, I did.
And a lot of people do. It's a white background. If that's all you've got, that's all you've got. This is why I'm saying this person has high feedback. So clearly they know what they're doing. They're making sales, right? So I'm not going to critique how they listed this. I'm going to say that it is correct. They didn't put a ton of information. I probably would have put the colors in the title. You know, the title definitely had more information that they could have put in there, but they still managed to sell this for more than twice what the other person is going to sell theirs for.
Right.
Right. So their item specifics are in there, but the other stuff is good. They have the measurements in there. They have the description in there.
Yep.
This one is this
in the right category.
It's in the right category. It's kids clothing. You're not going to get,
actually a vintage
it is
jacket.
Actually vintage. So, you know, big difference between the two.
Yep.
On similar items.
Very big difference.
I don't have a problem with somebody taking a photograph like that on the door. I think their photos could be better, but you know, you work with what you've got. That's not that bad. I've seen far better. It doesn't have to, not everything has to look like it's a professional studio.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this. Yeah, like I said, I started out with that. I do think that there's certain things that you want to do as you progress your business to increase the quality of your listings. And I will say graduating up from a door is one of those things. But it's not the end of the world.
See, Sandra says she photographs on her door, but then she photo fuses them. So that's great.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just the seeing the door is what, you know, and again, I had the exact same thing. And then I graduated to, I had a sheet pinned up over the door and so you couldn't see it in the pictures. And then I graduated to just a wall, and now we have the pull down screen. So
DJ, I'm not sure why people have an item for $20 and shipping for $300. That's an old school eBay thing as well. When eBay did not charge final value fees on shipping, that's what people would do. And that's why we now all pay final value fees on shipping, was because people did that for fee avoidance. So what they're getting out of it now, no idea.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of things people get stuck with the rules that used to be, and then for some reason they never realize that it's changed. So I think people still do things an old way.
There's still a lot of people that use templates and use very long descriptions. And I really do think that a part of that is a lot of people do not stay active in the community or know that there is a community, as far as they don't watch YouTube, they don't follow Facebook groups, they don't go into message board groups or anything. So they have no idea, no concept that eBay is an ever changing, evolving animal, and it is not stagnant. It is not where it was in 1999. And you have to change with it, and you have to change your business with it if you'd like to make it a business.
Yeah. Yeah, Noelle made a custom backdrop and table out of cedar wood. It's not white. It goes with my farm girl scavenger motif. I'm a rebel. You are a rebel.
I don't think you necessarily have to have an all white or all black background. I think do what works for you. If you have a nice clean background, some people use those backdrops that look like wood grain and whatnot, and they can look really nice.
The white background has to do with the Google search.
I understand that. Didn't you let me finish my sentence? I think that they can look really nice, and I don't have a problem with that. The thing is that when you want to use a white or a black background, it is what works for Google search. Google does not recognize colored and multicolored backgrounds.
A lot of people do just a search in Google, and then they go to listings on eBay to buy. So it is what it is, guys. All right. I don't know. I feel like we did a decent job of trying to cover as much as we could.
And we this was a show on the fly.
And again, it's not the end all be all. And I can tell you, in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, I might learn something new and be like, oh, I've been doing this wrong all along. Or things just change. And so what I would say is that, listen, you can listen to us because you decide that you trust us, because you see, we're really transparent. We show our numbers. You know that we make the sales that we say we do if you follow our actual stores on eBay. And so you can be like, you know what? I think they kind of know what they're talking about. You can follow us. However, if you watch this video and then, and this video comes that you watch it 6 months from now, don't assume that everything that we say is the bottom line or the way things should be done. You need to be paying attention because things change, things update. We're not going to go back on our YouTube and be like, hey guys, remember that video we did 6 months ago? And we're going to go.
It's irrelevant now.
Right. So you just everybody needs to always be learning.
And we both do things differently. So, I mean, I think we're both fairly successful as far as our eBay stores go. We're not, big time sellers, don't get us wrong, but we're both fairly successful and we both do things a little bit differently, and everybody does things a little differently. Again, like I said earlier in the show, it felt like earlier in the day because we've been on for an hour and a half. Pick a little bit. If you can get a little bit out of every person that you watch or that you learn from or that you style yourself after or model yourself after, if you can get a little nugget, as Frenchie calls them, if you can get a little nugget out of every person, then, make it into your own, make it your own.
Different people are going to inspire you for different reasons. Somebody might follow somebody because they're a stay-at-home mom and you're a stay-at-home mom. And so you're like, wow, they're doing it, so I could do it. Or people might follow us because we're both ladies and we're together, and maybe you are too, and you're like, oh, they're just like me, and so they inspire me. So there's different reasons why somebody who is quote unquote in the limelight might inspire you, but you need to understand, anybody that wants to have a YouTube channel can have a YouTube channel. Anyone that wants an Instagram account can have an Instagram account. Just because somebody's charismatic and you think they're funny or you think they're cool doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're talking about. So you need to do your homework. You need to pay attention and be like, okay, is this person that I'm listening to, if I'm taking just inspiration from them, that's fine. But if I'm listening to them about the bottom line of how to do certain things on eBay, I want to know that what they're saying results in sales. And so that's why on Sundays we show our numbers. That's why
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's why we share our actual accounts, and we don't have what you see is what you get. I mean, I get why, like you can follow Rally Roots, and I think that you can see that they're successful. They do share their eBay store, but they do have some stores that they don't share, but that makes sense because they do a lot of
retail arbitrage
and things where you don't necessarily want to show everything, but I think they do enough to show that they are successful at what they do. So you can listen to what they have to say because they probably know what they're talking about. But if you're following somebody and you're taking advice from somebody and they're not showing you their numbers, they're not showing you any kind of proof or demonstration that they actually know what they're talking about, you should question that. You want to be careful. That's all I want to say.
Sure.
Wicked Vintage, Wicked 13 Vintage. Sandra just busted out $2. So that $2 apparently is for me to buy my bananas for the showing of scale. I want to see, like, look at this big banana next to this t-shirt. See how big the t-shirt is?
It's ridiculous.
But we've gotten a couple super chats, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a super chat Super chat, super chat, yow. Anyway, guys, it's 12:29. Head on over to eBay for Business Facebook page. Check out their show, and then their other show at 1:30. They've got some good stuff going on there. Otherwise, it's Wednesday. Get in the Boss Facebook group and do Boss Up and List. Get your listings done. Make some goals. Set some numbers for what you want to accomplish today and get it done. Thanks, guys. We love you. We love you. And we will see you on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
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 Mm-hmm. Bye.